I thought I'd do a very short video on these Chioseki stages that I picked up. These are supposed to be really quite nice stages. They're supposed to have 1 micron resolution, and they're stepper driven XY Z stages. And I've got one complete XYZ set and a couple of other X/Y stage parts. One of the slightly problematic things about these stages is that they use these tiny little Oriental motor 5-phase steppers. So I talked a bit about those yesterday in relation to the Scientifica patch start, which is also kind of XYZ stage, but they're supposed to have, Oriental Motor say that they have much better vibrational characteristics, so the stage is supposed to not vibrate around as much, and they're supposed to have better kind of accuracy. And a lot of the Japanese stages like these seem to use the 5-phase steppers. The problem is that 5-phase stepper driver ICs are not particularly common that I've seen. And there's certainly no kind of cheap generally available drivers like there are for the like the easy drivers and the other kind of Arduino motor shields that you can pick up so you can just play with things quickly. So what I ended up doing is buying this thing, which is again it's from Oriental Motors, and it's a Oriental Motor 5-phase stepper driver, and I pulled one apart but didn't recognize any of the driver ICs clearly in there. But it's driven off 230 volts AC, which makes it, which is obviously, I think, it's that because that's what industrial stuff runs off, and Oriental Motors obviously sell into manufacturing a hell of a lot, so that's where that will have come from. But it's convenient for me obviously because UK power is 240 volts, so it's fine. So yeah, that could be an issue if you're looking at getting one of these, though, is that most of the drivers available seem to be 200 odd volt AC driven. The other problem is that they use these funny little connectors, which I'll show you in a second, called CN1 connectors. And actually those CN1 connectors can cost as much as a used driver. And I bought this is not even, manufactured I think by Mitsubishi and a couple of other companies. And this is just a knockoff connector that I bought, but it was still like I think $15–20 to get it, which was similar to the driver. Obviously, new to driver would be much more expensive, but all of this I pick up all my stuff off eBay, so that's a lot to spend for a connector for me. But yeah, the stages themselves are quite cheap. They were certainly under $100 per axis, I think. I can't remember the prices exactly, but they're very nicely made. This is all kind of precision Japanese manufacturing. It is an aluminium. The stage itself is made from aluminium, but it uses these nice high-spec motors, and all of the linear rails and stuff are very nice. So I'll just show it running. So there you go. You can see this is just driven off an Arduino, and again it's a very common kind of pulse drive. So one line for the direction, and then another line which is just pulses to turn the motor. And this thing uses, I guess, to be noise resistant, each control line is independently grounded. So you have a ground and the direction line and the ground and the pulse line, and I guess you can, that's so that to make it kind of the lines immune to noise, I guess. But I just route, the ground all to the same place on the Arduino, which is just producing some simple pulses for this test. So if we turn it off, it takes a while for the capacitor to drain and it to stop running. You can see this. This is the CN1 connector. So there's nothing much to look at, but it is, as I say, quite expensive connector and not very commonly available. You could just hack it onto the PCB. I guess, but I didn't really feel like hacking around with these drivers. The other thing that's expensive is these connectors, which I have on these stages, which are Hirose connectors, and again you can get these off DigiKey, but they are also quite expensive. They're like $20 each. But they do appear to be, this is the Z stage that came with it, and as you can see, it's the same connector. In the end, I was thinking about using these for positioning, and I have a bunch of them. I'm thinking about using them for positioning for the course Z maybe, and then just to move around coarsely for the SPM project. But basically the problem is this driver being driven off AC mains is very noisy, and I get a lot of electrical noise from this. So yeah, that's not great. The Z is also active. Where did I put the Z? The Z is also active. This is not a spring-loaded stage. So if the motor was not here, the thing would all just roll down. So it's the I guess it's the friction of the motor that keeps this stage up. So I don't like that, basically. So the spring-loaded stage that I've used, perhaps I should do another video on these sometime. This is a spring-loaded stage that I've been using, and I've actually been driving this with a Pico motor. And these are very cheap Chinese spring-loaded stages, so I just removed the micrometer and I've put a Pico motor in there for my stuff. But you could put a DC motor in it. But the base, yeah, the good thing is that you can put a motor in here that will stop. So it's spring-loaded, and it kind of it keeps everything in place, which is kind of nice. Yeah, so just a quick video on that. I have a write-up on my blog as well, which I'll link in. But yeah, those are the Chioseki stages.